So Trial by Fire by Testament.
Monster Shop. Monster Shop. There we go.
Do you know what?
Copyright, that one is.
What?
We're getting taken off for that.
Oh, this is going to... Man in the High Castle.
Oh, yeah.
And the theme tune was like that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Edelweiss?
Yeah. It was all over that. It was... Did you watch it?
No.
Man in the High Castle. Yeah, it's dead good. I like Man in the High Castle. First season, like lots of those things. First season, mega.
Yeah.
Properly, like just twists your brain a little bit. And you're because it reimagines what would have happened if Germany won World War II.
Yeah, it's based on a book, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's a book, yeah.
And it's just everything about it's really cool. The way it's done is really cool. It pulls you in. It's kind of enticing. There's lots of threads happening. The characters are great, and and you think, oh, who is the Man in the High Castle?
Yeah,
it's all kind
of
really, you're like, whoa, this is a really great.
And they didn't expect to be renewed for the second season.
And it just kind of is. It's all right. Do you know what I mean? It develops and it is all right.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not as good. It's a bit like Westworld.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great
Westworld
example of
is
that.
like Westworld's like I remember
that first season. I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever.
Somebody told me I was flying to the US and we were chatting in our group chat, and I said, I don't know what to watch. So I'll try Westworld. And I was like, oh, it sounds crap. Do you know what I mean? You know when you get that, just sounds rubbish.
Yeah.
And then anyway, so I downloaded it and I watched it. And when I landed in the US, I was so hooked.
Yeah,
I just stayed up till like 4 or 5 in the morning watching it, and then had to kind of do work. A bit tired the next day. Anyway, we're the Monster Shop, and we're a podcast.
Yes,
about music. It's hard to tell sometimes.
It is. We first certainly for the first 3 minutes while we're like just rambling a bit.
Talking of rambling, what have you been doing this week?
Poorly.
You weren't very well, were you?
Poorly, yeah. I'm still doing it. I'm still a bit now. You can probably hear it.
Oh, that reminds me. Your dad wants me to give him some cups. This is going to be great podcasting. Your dad wants me to give him some cups.
Yeah, okay.
And when we go home from here, remind me to
go and get the cups.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We can do that.
That was important podcasting.
That's important. No, we got it. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, but no, you weren't very well, were you?
No, no. And it was like, I tell you what it was. It was like COVID light. That's what it felt like.
Oh.
So I was poorly.
Like from Temu.
Yeah. And then I did some work.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed for hours. And then I got up and did a bit more work. Then went to bed for hours again.
See, my brain's still gone down the Temu route. So this would have been COVID that you ordered 3 months ago. Forgot that you ordered. And then it arrived. I don't want it anymore. And it was rubbish.
Yeah.
That's that. I think that works.
Yeah. So it was definitely some strain of it. And I'm still doing it now where I'm like, I'm a bit breathy and chesty and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely, definitely a bit of that going on. What about you?
I have been working. I've been learning about AI a lot this week. I've been doing some artificial intelligence work, which has been good fun. I've been listening to some new releases. Apocalyptica they released
the strings.
The cello people. They did that Apocalyptica plays Metallica.
Yes,
they did that version 2, and it's got Rob Trujillo.
Really?
I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
Trujillo. That was brilliant. I've really enjoyed that. And I don't know.
I've been rubbish at listening to new music, you know. You know when one of our first incarnations of Monster Shop was new music.
It was,
and it was constantly about discovering new stuff, and since we've done that, I haven't done anything. I've been very, very lazy when it comes to new music. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at our Twitter feed because we do X. Because we do X now.
And what is it? Monster Shop Podcast.
Yeah. You search for Monster Shop Podcast on the X.
Yeah.
You'll find us, and we're dead good.
Yeah.
But one of the things we do is we post like new albums and albums that were released on that day. One of the other things to do every Friday, we do like a new albums. So all the new albums that have been released that I like get posted. Now one of them, we've not really covered any proper metal-y stuff up to now. We've been playing in the shallow waters a little bit, but there's an album by a band called Graphic Nature. Called "Who Are You When No One Is Watching?" That came out.
I like that concept.
Friday. Look at the cover. I'm going to show you the cover. Look, what do you think? This is going to be brilliant podcasting as well.
It's a good cover.
So
everyone's looking now.
Yeah. It's pretty hardcore. They're kind of British metalcore band.
Yeah.
Oh, and honestly, just jaw dropping.
Really?
It's an album that never heard of them before. Absolutely, just brilliant. Gaslight Anthem, they released history books on Friday as well. For our rock fans, it's quite nice. My 13-year-old's taken to that.
Nice,
quite likes it. And then
they're quite punky, aren't they?
Gaslight
Anthem, is
it? Yeah, kind of. They're kind of like Radio 2 rock.
Okay,
you know what I mean. They're quite they're very family. You could put it on and nobody would say, "Oh, turn that rubbish off." That kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of very inoffensive.
Do you still get that as well?
Yeah.
Turn that off. Turn that rubbish off.
Everything I put on, and then the Apocalyptica.
Nice.
Plays Metallica Volume 2. I've really enjoyed that. I think that's been good. I didn't like the first one very much. I think I've grown up.
Yeah,
because I quite like it now. And yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got another thing for you as well.
Yeah.
That our Twitter did.
Yeah.
Guess what was released on the 12th of July. It was an album you were gushing over on our previous podcast.
Really?
It was Tesseract.
Oh, what a record.
War of Being.
So that was last year. That's a year old.
They released this. They released the first single, War of Being, on the 12th of July.
It's a hell of a record, that is.
It is, isn't it?
That was the last time I listened to new music.
That's the sound
a year ago.
The sound of Milton Keynes. That's when you drive through Milton Keynes. That's what it sounds like. Today we're going to do Testament.
Testament.
And I've got
it's the heaviest one so far, I think.
It is, yeah. Well, I have to be honest. It's very not as heavy as I wanted to go, but I thought we'd ease in a bit.
People in,
yeah, a little bit. I did a poll. I figured out how to do polls on X.
You're loving X at the minute.
We did a poll.
Yeah,
we couldn't. You can't do a poll on Meta.
No.
So on Facebook, our Facebook page, you can't do a poll. I have to do a poll like on another account and then link, and it's just rubbish.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I did a poll, and I thought, let's do a poll on which Testament album to cover.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And guess how many votes we had?
3.
6.
Double.
So I will say that we are very new on X, and people are still discovering us. But 6 of you found us and voted in a poll. And I listed the top 4, or the first 4 Testament albums: The Legacy, The New Order, Practice What You Preach, and Souls of Black.
So this is a co-created show with our 6 fans.
It is, yeah. So The Legacy got 17%.
Yeah.
New Order got 33%.
Wow.
Practice What You Preach got 17%.
Yeah.
And Souls of Black got 33%.
Yeah.
And I have to say, The New Order is my favourite.
That's the
anyway.
one. Yeah.
I was going to do that whether it won or not. But The New Order is lovely. It's a testament to me where...
So you see, we're listening, but we do what we want.
Yeah, independent listening. I don't know what you would call it. But Testament were always a band to me that... There's the big 4 thrash bands. So you had like Slayer, Megadeth.
Yeah.
You had Anthrax. You know, it was... They were always the bands that got all the media attention, right? So they got all the media, all the press, but then there were just these others. They were you know, like I mean, the next 4 down kind of were like Testament and Exodus, Sepultura and Overkill and those kinds of things. They always stayed like a little bit underground, and it was really weird. They were always a bit cooler, I thought, because they weren't as popular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
thinking back to the Green Day thing last week.
You like didn't see so many people wearing their T-shirts. You know, so like you would see Metallica T-shirts and Megadeth and Anthrax and Slayer T-shirts everywhere you went.
Yeah.
But you saw somebody with an Overkill T-shirt, and you were like, You know. But Testament were one of those bands that I always felt should have been just so much bigger. You know, the musicianship across all of their albums. This one in particular, we're going to look at The New Order. The musicianship in particular, I just think is excellent. For back in 1988, I remember putting this on and just being like floored. By it. You know, I mean, this is 1988, so you know, if you look at what Slayer and Metallica were doing at the same time. They weren't doing this. They were complicated, they were thrashy, but this is kind of, I don't know, is this incredibly like melodic, but savage as well. This kind of savage edge, to it, right? And they were for me, they were one of the only bands that were doing that. I think we listened to a clip of Trial by Fire when when the show started, and I want to play a little bit. We played the remix. It's just been remastered, this album.
Yeah. Oh, is that a recent one?
On the 12th.
Oh.
So I think it was Friday. Is it Friday?
So is that like an anniversary? Oh, so this is brand new.
Yeah, this is brand new. Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I wanted to do this record. I saw that the remaster was coming, and I thought we can talk about it.
Well done, you. That's very clever.
So I think let's play
Yeah.
a little bit of a clip of both. Let's play a bit of Trial by Fire, because I want to hear.
So the old version first, then the new remaster.
Yeah, and then let's do, because it's quite nice because it's got the space and the air and the kick drum and everything. So we'll listen to that, and then I want to ask you some questions about producing and mixing and mastering and how it applies to these songs.
Yeah. Okay. So right, that was the unmastered version. It's not the unmastered, it was mastered, but it was mastered a while ago. That was the old version, and then we're now going to play the same clip pretty much, but from the new remaster that was released on the 12th.
Yep.
Yeah, it's quite a difference, isn't it, that?
It's worth talking about the original. So the original was recorded at Pyramid Sound Studios in Ithaca, New York.
I want to go there. That's a cool name. It sounds like it's like Aztecs.
It's really famous.
Is it?
Yeah. So it was the producer was Alex Perry-Arles. Now he was
Ithaca the Studios.
Yeah,
right.
Ithaca's the studio name. Oh no, Ithaca's the place.
The place.
Pyramid Sound Studios in Ithaca, New York.
Right. Okay. It's got like a Mayan thing going on, isn't it? It sounds or an Aztec type.
The bit that's interesting is that lots of other bands recorded there. So Anthrax and Overkill. Anthrax did loads of stuff.
Yeah.
In there, recording wise, standard state of the art stuff, right? So SM57s, SM58s, Neumann U87s for vocals, SSL console, Studio A800, Marshall Mesa Boogies, just the
absolute standard stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
we say this most weeks, don't we? Actually,
yeah.
These are this is the tech that we list off most weeks.
And it's that's what was in studios in the 80s. I think the albums we've been doing have been there, which I think is interesting. Like other bands that were in there, like Agnostic Front, Stormtroopers of Death, Bad Religion. Really, really like prominent. Prominent studio. It's been remastered a couple of times, and it's interesting because I looked at what had been the comments, if you like, from people that had reviewed it, lots of reviewers, and the vast majority of people are saying, there's no difference, can't hear any difference, sounds exactly the same.
They need to look at the waveform,
and it was interesting, because
I like a look at waveform. I do.
Well, it's weird. Yeah, well,
And it sounds it looks totally different. It sounds totally different to me.
it does. It was redone by Justin Shturtz at Sterling Sound. It's been re-released on 180-gram vinyl with blue and purple swill vinyl and black splatter, which I've ordered.
Of course you have.
I'm so excited. But I wanted to talk a little bit. So the reviews of that album, of the remaster particularly, people are saying they can't hear any difference.
Yes.
Do you think? I think people get mixed up between, if you have an album like a remix and a remaster.
Yes.
And what is the difference between them? What do you want to explain the difference of a remix and a remaster?
Yeah. So it's best to understand the recording process to begin with.
Yeah.
So initially you'd have a track-in session.
Yeah.
And that'd be where you track your instruments in. And sometimes that's one at a time. Sometimes that's playing a few things together. But it's effectively getting your source material as instruments in this day and age, multi-tracked into Pro Tools or an equivalent bit of software.
But they might be, like when I've seen you do this, like often they're radically different volume levels depending on what it is, right?
Yeah.
They might be. There's not much effort put into, how does it sound together at that point?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's just recording.
It's just getting the best quality sound for that capture, for capturing that instrument.
Yeah.
Then once you've got everything captured, you'll probably want to edit it a bit and move things around. And a lot of people use processing these days like auto-tune and those sorts of things, and cut things up and move things around. Used to be just like back in the day when this was recorded, it would have just been put to tape.
Yeah,
and they may have cut some tape up, they may have edited things in that way and spliced and that sort of thing. But in general, it was it's getting that source material down. Now once that's down, you'll go through a process of a mix, and that is where you'll apply certain audio processing like compression, which kind of squashes the sound, so it makes quiet sounds louder in the overall kind of thing. EQ, which brings out the different frequency ranges within the instrument. So for example, a bass instrument, you want the low frequencies. Let's say cymbals, you'd want more higher frequency. And once you've done that, and you've got the mix nice, you might add some effects and reverbs and those sort of things, and you might group certain instruments together and then process those in a particular way. So like you have a drum bus or a guitar bus where all of your instruments, like your guitars, go to one sort of set stack, and then you manipulate that stack again to make all those kind of instruments do that. And then eventually you go to a mix bus. And the mix bus might have just an overall kind of thing on it. Like the SSL, there was a famous thing called a G bus. And that was the thing that, was on a lot of records, which just added something at the end.
Is that the maximizer? You talk about maximizing sometimes. Is that further down the chain?
That's kind of more like your mastering, but your bus generally is like a thing that does something to the overall sound.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it's summing, so they'd use summing as well. So summing and bus compression and that kind of thing is a thing that people do to kind of glues the mix together.
Well,
is the best way to discuss it.
I didn't realize this until I saw you doing I think some recent Riding the Low stuff, but it's the number of layers of the same instrument. So you'll record the guitars 2 or 3 times maybe, doing exactly the same thing with exactly the same processing to make it sound thicker and bigger.
It generally you'd use it across the stereo field, so you've got your left and right with standard audio, and what you do is you sometimes is you don't have to do it, but what I like to do is to double up the guitars and then stereo them out, so you have one side and one the other side. And that sounds
it's
good.
Playing the same thing typically.
Pretty much, yeah. You might have the odd nuance. It's like doubling vocals. It's the same kind of concept. You might have the odd thing, but it thickens it, makes it sound kind of interesting.
So we've done that. So that's our mix done. So that's kind of the levels, and it kind of, because often when you've sent me stuff and it sounds pretty good at that point. You think, it sounds good. It's got a nice sound to it. I think that I could listen to that.
Yeah.
So then what's mastering? What does that do?
So I would call mastering the standardization of the mix.
Right.
So you take the mix, and you remember when I talked about grouping and bussing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So you've got your general mix that normally would be like a stereo left and right, 2-channel mix of audio. And what you do is you'd apply more processing to that for it to be for it to kind of come out at almost like a set audio standard.
Right.
So that would have a particular dynamic level, and that would be achieved by compression or limiting, or
Gotcha. Okay.
it might, you might want to do the radio thing, so you might EQ it in a particular way that brings out certain frequencies overall, in the whole song, which is why when you talked about Green Day and you said about adding reverb in the master,
it's weird,
that made my eye twitch because that's not something you do during the master. That's done during the mix.
Yeah.
And I'm not a mixing engineer or a mastering engineer. I'm not, that's not really my thing necessarily. I really like recording. I'm quite good at that, but I'm still, yet to do a mix where I'm going, that sounds like a record.
You're still a Padawan.
I'm still a Padawan. Yeah. I'm still. I might never get it. It might be that thing, but I do kind of like, and I know the way it works. I'm just not that good at it myself.
So what would you expect? So the process then. So when they redid this.
Oh, sorry, mastering. The other thing is stereo width. So and this is why we're talking about remastering, because when I say I use that word standardization on purpose, because back in the day when this record was first released, there would have been particular recognized audio standards because of the formats that the music was released on and where it was broadcast and all of that. I mean,
let's be honest, this would have been out on compact cassette.
Yeah.
88. So CDs were around, but
wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, so vinyl and I mean analog basically.
Yeah. So ordinarily you'll find that most things that were released and recorded in that period sound quieter.
Right.
And they've got more dynamic range.
Yeah.
Then they go louder and quieter.
Yeah.
That's more obvious.
Yeah.
But what they tend to be is an overall kind of a perceptually sort of quieter level.
Right.
Whereas now, because most
that
things
was to avoid clipping, wasn't it? That was to avoid the clipping and the on vinyl particularly. If the low frequencies are too loud, the needle literally skips between. Yeah,
there's certain EQ that you always do to vinyl. Even now, if you want to do a vinyl master, you have to do that very, very differently to the master that you put out on streaming or whatever.
Gotcha.
So now, because of streaming, the general rec is called LUFS, LUFS. Yeah, and I can't remember what that stands for, but that's generally your kind of peak dynamic level, and. It tends to be -14 is your standard where it gets cut off at the top end, and then lots of things pushing -11 and that sort of thing. But the general idea is that most records now, because of this standardization, someone who knows mastering is going to correct me on that LUFS thing, because I'm still not sure I've got my head around that properly. But the general idea of mastering now is that it's louder. Everything is louder. Everything's a little bit brighter, a little bit harsher, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit wider. The stereo width is a lot wider. If you listen to those different versions on headphones, it almost sounds like it's behind your head. Is that wide?
It is. It's. I read that people, reviewers saying there's no difference between them. And then I put my headphones on and listened, and I couldn't believe, especially in Trial by Fire, that example we just gave. It's phenomenal to me. The bass guitar is audible almost throughout the album, which it isn't on the original in 1988. But the thing that leaps out at me is the sound of the drums.
Yeah.
The original drums sound abysmal, and the new drums, it sounds much better. And it's really interesting because it's such a big difference.
Yes.
I went back and checked whether it was a remix or a remaster because, you said, like if it was being remixed, then they could trigger and make different sounds to the drums, but they're not. Yeah. It's a master, so it's literally just that, like you say, that tweaking and the kind of maximizing and the making the making it wider, and there's more air and space to it. Yeah. But I don't know whether it's EQ. I'm not quite sure how they've got the.
It's a combination. It sounds like a combination of things. It's there's certainly a great deal more compression going on, and a different kind of compression. Chances are it's been maximized in some way through some sort of limiter.
Yeah.
There's definitely been a lot of EQ applied, probably multiband as well. So multiband EQ is where you take a particular band of frequencies and you can compress that as well.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And then the multiband compression. That is, sorry, not multiband EQ. So multiband compression is where you take a particular set of frequencies, like a low end or a mid low, and then you sculpt out that chunk and you compress that itself.
Okay.
So that allows you to create sometimes that separation and that clarity within the instruments.
It is really obvious that there is a lot of space in this. It sounds a lot better. The other thing that I think is really interesting is obviously when it was originally done, it was in 1988. And this will have been pulled from the original masters into Pro Tools and then processed.
Yeah.
The bit that I think is interesting is the release master for this is 192 kilohertz, 24-bit. So it's just super high resolution. The Apple Music one's super high res. You can buy it from Studio Masters and stuff. You get the high res versions of it. And I don't necessarily buy into that as being a big deal. But
it depends what you're listening on.
It does, but I think in this case, I think when you're going back from something that is like that old, it's got to adjust the re-recording of that master tape onto something, with newer tape machines, you know what I mean, all that kind of fancy heads. I mean, you have to think the kind of 40-year-old heads and stuff that were used to originally do it. And the original digital masters will have been done, 30 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
So having something modern, pulling all that data off the analog tape.
Yeah.
I don't know. I suppose the tape will degrade a little bit, but I don't know. I kind of think that there's definitely something there. But it's one of the few remasters I think that I much prefer. Yeah. I think they've made like really good choices.
Yeah, it's a strengthening remaster.
Yeah.
Rather than for the sake of it, just to make it louder.
It's not like Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine did remasters.
Yeah.
And added things. There's like trumpets and things, and they did all kinds of weird things. And it upset me hugely. And I didn't like it. And then
it's like Star Wars with Lucas, isn't it? It's the same. It's like, no, leave that alone. That was that. You don't need to touch that. Yeah,
I don't think it's interesting because before they did this, I didn't know I wanted it.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense? It's going to sound really weird, but when I saw there was a remaster coming, I immediately had the speech plan that I was going to deliver right now, saying I prefer the original. I shouldn't have bothered. Just. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just cut me. Still go and cut a nice blue splatter vinyl for me to go and buy.
Yeah.
But don't bother remastering it. Give me some more pictures and artwork and stuff. But just leave the music alone. It's what it is.
You're glad.
I prefer it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the album then. So this is The New Order, released on May 5th, 1988, which is in peak metal.
Peak metal. Isn't it 2 years after the greatest year of music for you? You said 86?
1986, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. I keep because you'll see other albums and there's that was 87 or that was 80. Yeah. It was 86.
Yeah.
Just
AP after peak.
Should be. It should be.
2 years AP.
Got some interesting things for you here. So, critical reception. Everyone gushed over this album. And the one before it, The Legacy.
Yeah. The guitar, it's
Alex
the guitar
Skolnick.
work. It's just
Alex Skolnick.
Unbelievable.
And Eric Peterson. Alex is lead, Eric is rhythm guitar. Those two are like, I've put my fingers together.
Everyone can see that.
Yeah,
everyone
over
can
the
see
podcast. That. I'm still. We've been doing this for like 5 years, and I'm still struggling with the fact that people can't see me. But yeah, those two I think were just. I think there are very few guitar pairings that are as powerful as that. The kind of the big, heavy, thick riffs.
Yeah,
and then you've got Alex just kind of, I don't know, soaring over that, and there's the picking, the melodies, it's fast, but then it just like there will be these bits where it's kind of frantic Eddie Van Halen kind of like and then
twiddly
widdlies,
yeah,
and then you'll just get this bit where it's like a breakdown. It just kind of goes doof, and then and off it goes. And it's just
it's super melodic, and it's like listening to the guitar. It's like a workout. It's like if you're gonna practice your guitar, that's what you play. It's like scales and repetition and patterns, and it feels like listening to it. It's like everything is like a guitar workout, like a guitar practice session. And what you get when you get to guitar, and you start doing all that sort of stuff, there's a particular technique called sweep picking that you get to.
We've talked about this before.
I can't do it. I've never been able to do it because I can't even make my fingers do the thing that it's supposed to do. And once I'm able to do it, I might do it maybe when I'm about 60. I'm going to do it on everything because I think it sounds amazing. And it's one of those things.
It'll just be able to do it.
Yeah. So sweep picking and tapping seems to be a really key feature of his style of playing. And it mesmerizes me. It's like, what's that thing? What happens? What's that animal that gets mesmerized when you?
I don't know.
Is it a crocodile or an alligator or something?
I don't know.
And you like hypnotize it and it can't bite you anymore. That's all. That's
what?
So if I ever get violent, if you put sweep picking on,
and then you just,
I'll just freeze out. That's it.
Give you a picture of John Bon Jovi. Does the same thing. But yeah, it's phenomenal. I love that.
I'm sure it is the crocodile where you get it with stick. You do a particular thing with a stick and it hypnotizes it. Sorry.
I don't know how you know this. We live as far away from the coast as it's possible to live. I know
in a country where there's no crocodiles.
It's like, how do you know these things? It's just YouTube, isn't it? Have you done your research?
Yeah. But we're gonna have to put a post out for someone to find videos.
Tell us.
Yeah, I think it's drugs. I think they do it in like countries where they have entertainment and they put their heads in their mouths,
right?
And they do things with sticks, that's supposed to hypnotise them. But I think they probably just drug them.
Yeah,
to be
probably.
fair,
Yeah, both of them, the people that are putting their heads in and the other thing. There was a couple of other things I wanted to call out here. So Chuck Billy is the vocalist.
Yeah.
Vocals changed a little bit. There was an album before this called The Legacy, which is a bit harder.
Yeah.
This is a bit more melodic. I might prefer it. But Chuck Billy is phenomenal. But there are two dudes that don't get enough attention because Alex Skolnick and Alex Skolnick, everyone knows who he is because of that sweep picking, because of the kind of melodic nature, and because he just looks really cool while he's doing it.
Yeah.
But the bass work, Greg Christian did the bass.
Can I ask, does he do guitar faces when he plays?
Yeah.
You can't. I don't think you can play that kind of guitar without doing the face.
No, you've got to do that. I could do the face, but I can't do the guitar. And then Louis Clement does the drums. And I think actually, like the Trial by Fire, that bit we played earlier, the bass and drums make, I mean, the guitar work is phenomenal and it's a great riff, but it wouldn't be as good without the bass and the bass line and the drums on that one. I think I think it sounds excellent. From the Bay Area, so they so
that's where the
Slayer and Metallica,
yeah.
Anthrax were New York.
Oh, sorry.
But
where is the Bay Area then? So that's Seattle,
San Francisco.
That's the other side.
Yeah, it is.
Couldn't get any further away.
No.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of switchover. There was a lot of people that would get on because in America you get on a bus and sleep for 3 days and then you arrive on the other side. Lots of that kind of stuff. And they would play gigs as well. There's loads of stories of these bands having like $20 and playing a gig and literally traveling for 1,000 miles across the country.
Wow.
And playing a gig and then going home, sleeping on people's floors and things. Alex Skolnick, a thing you might not know, Alex Skolnick was a student of Joe Satriani.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think it's really telling. I think there's a lot of kind of...
He taught him sweep picking properly, didn't he?
I think he did, didn't he? Yeah. I think he did. There's another bit here where Steve Souza was the original vocalist for Testament, and the band wasn't called Testament back then; it was called Legacy.
Right.
And their first album was called Legacy.
Yeah.
Steve Souza left, and Chuck Billy joined, but Steve Souza went on to Exodus, who were Bay Area as well.
Right.
There's no way we're going to get through this without covering Exodus album. I'm a massive fan of Exodus, so we're definitely going to get on to some of their stuff. But I do kind of like that that switch of players and the lineup in Testament. You know, we talked about Green Day last week, and the lineup hadn't changed.
Yeah.
Except that their touring guitarist, eventually they went, all right, you can join. After like 20 years or so. 20 years.
That was the same with Bon Jovi, wasn't it?
Yeah, 20
Did we say this?
20 years probation.
I can't remember we said this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bon Jovi guy was the same, the bass player.
Oh, yeah. They just, you know, you can't come in.
Been playing for years.
Yeah, and then eventually, all right, you can join. But I think it's like Testament's the opposite. Testament's had a lot of lineup changes.
And is it switching around then everyone's happy families, or is it lots of falling out?
A bit of both.
Right.
I think in some
You
cases,
know, like, I'm going to judge. I'm in that one for a bit now, and everyone's friends. And
yeah, no, they used to be. I mean, there were fights in the Bay
Were
Area.
they?
Yeah, the bands would fight, and then some of them they wouldn't. And you know, what I mean, some would.
I just feel really like about that.
Some were dead good mates.
Yeah.
and it would literally they'd all be in the same bar.
Yeah,
And then whoever was playing,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? They would just swap members.
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and they'd be constant. You know, you never really knew what band was playing because it would just be like half of one and half of another.
yeah,
Looking back on it, we kind of look back with a bit of reverence, kind of a little bit. Oh yeah, that's Metallica.
yeah,
But
yeah.
back in the mid '80s, it wasn't Metallica.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
just four lads.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I thought it's interesting. I think. I want to talk about the artwork.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to get grumpy a little bit. So the original artwork was done by William Benson, and
That's a very sensible name.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so my notes. The original artwork for the Testament album, The New Order, was created by William Benson, with the cover art concept developed by Eric Peterson. For the 2024 remastered version, new artwork was designed. It doesn't say who by, but
How do you feel about that?
I don't like it.
No.
And I don't like what they've done is drawn eyes on the. Look, I'm going to show you. Look, let me show you this.
Everyone can see this.
Again, this is going to work.
So all you're going to do is Google the old version and the new version.
I'll put it in our
and you'll
blog.
be able to
I'll
see.
put it in the blog. Look, can you see? Can you see the drawn eyes?
Yeah.
There's like a picture
Like
of
a galaxy,
planet.
but it looks like galaxies, doesn't
It's
it?
like a
In
planet.
Space,
Yeah, there's like
space smoke.
It's like a planet thing.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's supposed to be Earth or whatever, but there's like a planet thing, right? And then there's like this kind of ghouly thing that's
Yeah.
kind of at the back of it. Now, it didn't have eyes initially, and it looked quite menacing.
Yeah.
And they've drawn eyes on it, and now it looks a bit like a Dalmatian, I think.
Cruella de Vil watching over the earth.
I don't like it. Don't just leave. Didn't need eyes drawing on it, and they've not ruined it, but it's just not. I just look. That's the original look. You see, look, that's what it looked like originally. Look.
Oh right, so it's still got this. Yeah, that looks like more like a skull.
Yeah, and then now it just.
It looks sad.
I don't get
I
it.
think it's sad about the earth.
I don't get it. I like it. The thing is, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like the cover.
Yeah.
I remember buying this.
Why did they do
I
that?
don't know. I remember buying this. I had the T-shirt. I loved it.
There was a
Absolutely loved it.
meeting about that. That's what
I don't know.
happened. There was a meeting.
It's just anyway. I don't feel the need for that. I wish they'd not done it. If I'm honest. Shall we play another bit of music from the album? I'd like to play Into the Pit.
Into the pit.
Into Pit.
Into pit.
You've not done any. You've not done any Yorkshire accent. You can't do it anymore.
I've gone.
Can you?
It's gone. I can't. Yeah.
You went through a phase, but for those that have been with us for a while on our previous show, we would be talking about. Usually, it would be like Aussie, and you'd be like, "Oh, Jake E. Lee," and you'd go all Yorkshire on us for a little bit, and I liked that a lot.
It's gone. I've lost it.
I challenged you the other day, and you couldn't do it.
No.
But you must be able to say "into pit."
Into pit. No. I'm not happy with it.
More practice.
Yeah. to the pit. Do you know where we've just been?
Okay. Into pit.
We've just been into a pit.
I was going to go, welcome to Radio York.
Welcome to Monster Shop. I've got it back. He's back.
Oh dear. How offensive. It's probably really offensive,
It
isn't
probably
it?
is. Yeah, it probably is.
It's just it's no better than like pretending to be like Chinese or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know, we'll just pick on the whole of Yorkshire.
Yeah, but they're nice. I like it. Hendo's sauce.
Henderson's relish.
Yes.
What? Where did that come from?
Yeah, because that's a Yorkshire thing, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
I saw a brilliant meme video this week where it's a guy from China and he's talking to his friend in the car and he says, hey, look, Bobby, watch me be American. And like Americans when they kind of do the slinty-eyed thing and they pretend to be Chinese.
Bad.
And then he does his eyes the other way, so they're round.
Oh, I see.
And then he
I'm
goes,
going to use my credit card. Yeah.
do you have anything dairy free? Yeah. And I loved it. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. I want to talk about commercials because I like talking about commercial stuff of albums. Guess how many copies that sold?
I don't.
The whole album.
I'm not very good at them. I'll say the wrong number. 125,000.
So the
20 million.
Megadeth.
Somewhere in between.
If we look at where's my list gone? Like I think at the same time you had albums from Megadeth. So there was a album called So Far So Good So What.
Yeah.
That sold 1 million copies. This one, The New Order, 250,000.
Wow.
So a lot less. And the big four that we talked about, that whole kind of
The Anthrax Slayer,
Megadeth, Metallica. That was chosen based on record sales.
Oh, really?
For a tour. So, and I can't remember whose idea it was. I should prepare better. But there was a tour that was happening, and they wanted to go and do these massive stadium tours, and none of them really could do it.
Yeah.
So they said, well, let's get the 4 biggest thrash bands together, and we'll go and do a stadium tour. And that's where it came from. But then there's this concept of the big 8 that come afterwards. But the gap between the poorest selling of the big 4 to the big 8 is quite significant.
Really?
It's a fairly big drop. But it's bands like Testament and Overkill.
Yeah.
I put Sepultura in there as well. It's phenomenal to me how poor the sales were for some of these albums when they were, like the first album, The Legacy, was 150,000. And later albums,
I'd be quite happy with 150,000, to be honest. You say poor. I know, but you're talking comparatively, aren't you?
Yeah, and I suppose back then, money was different.
Yeah.
And they would have been getting, I mean, they might have got, like £2 an album.
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, she'd actually been paid per record, whereas you don't get paid. I mean,
there's just no money.
You just don't get paid for
albums.
albums anymore. You get paid for live and single and some, you get paid for merch.
Other
and
stuff.
Things. Yeah. And I'm sure that, I mean, I'm sure they kind of dealt with that stuff appropriately, but yeah, it's I don't know. I think their commercial success is a lot less than I imagined. It would be, given that you're in your band that you love.
Yeah.
Anyway, we talked about Alex Skolnick and we talked about lead guitar work.
Yeah.
Can we play a clip?
Absolutely. What are we doing?
I'd like to play the solo from Eerie Inhabitants because I think it's the best solo.
Yeah, let's go. You can hear, you said earlier about he was like Steve Vai's protege.
Joe Satriani.
Oh, Satriani, was it?
Yeah.
I've said Vai a couple of times, haven't I?
Have you? I'm looking at my notes. I'm pretty sure it was Satriani. They're the same, aren't they?
I know, that's bad that I said that. That's like a bad thing that I did.
Are they not the same?
No, they're
they
totally
not?
different.
Tell me, how are they different?
Joe Satriani hasn't got hair. Steve Vai has.
And the glasses.
Yeah.
I do like Joe Satriani.
Yeah, I do. I like them both.
I'm not a massive fan of Steve Vai. I'm not as engaged by his albums.
Yeah.
Joe Satriani, I felt quite bluesy in places.
Yeah.
Like he did, what was the Alien one?
Yeah.
Brain's gone funny.
Joe Satriani and the Alien. Yeah.
and Alien. Surfing with the Aliens.
Yeah.
Loved that. The Extremist as well. I love that as well. I love a lot of Satriani's records. I listen to them a lot when I'm working.
We've done. That's a thing. That's a thing with guitarists. How you get them two muddled up.
Is it?
That's a thing. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I bet.
And we've fallen for it. We've fallen into that trap.
Your mate, Mr. Baker.
Yes.
He wouldn't get them mixed up, would he?
No, he wouldn't. No chance. No.
He's not real though, is he? We were talking about doing
the Black Crows one.
The Black Crows and having him on the show, but he's not real. Dan. We're talking about Dan Baker. He is a friend of ours. Probably doesn't listen.
He listens to every single one.
Does he?
Yep.
I bet he doesn't.
He does. He'll text me. He'll go, "I am real."
He's not. I've seen him before, but I swear he's inflatable. I think Paddy turns up to your gigs with a little hologram puck and just puts it where he wants Dan to be, and then selects like rock out mode from 1 to 5 or whatever, and then Dan appears.
It's that Michael Jackson meme, with with his foot and he's doing the air pump. Yeah. You seen that one?
Yeah.
I have to say, I think we need to be clear about this on air.
Yeah.
Our relationship is pretty much memes, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is. I like memes.
Yeah, we do a lot of memes.
It's the thing is, sometimes you'll send me something, I'm like, oh, you can't say that. And I love it. It's in that. I don't know. I think you're the same as me with this stuff. It's kind of like that. You're in this like absolutely clinical environment of D&I, of being, you're always aware of how you might offend somebody and how you have to behave and what you have to do in that kind of corporate environment. And I genuinely believe that it, like having an environment where people feel empowered and they don't feel threatened, and all of that stuff, I think is really, really powerful. But there's nothing as funny as when someone sends you something that's so inappropriate that you just it's the level of inappropriateness where that, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of, it's just that like extremity. You just think, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
I think what we'll either get fired or arrested because of that chat group. I think that's us nearly done.
Yes. I think we want to listen to a song, though, to go out with, don't we?
We do. Yeah. I wanted to end with a track called Musical Death, a Dirge, which is Alex Skolnick twiddly widdlying. Very acoustic-y, ballady almost. Really interesting song. One of the things I really like about this album and the production, I think one of the things that really turned me onto it initially was the kind of the reverb and space around the acoustic guitars. When they have acoustic guitars on there, they're quite it feels like you can hear the room. I'm sure it probably isn't the room. I'm sure it's just like it's some kind of reverb device. But I really like it. And it was a bit unique at the time. There was a few other bands that had like bits of acoustic-y guitar on there, but I think Testament did it the best. But,
definitely. And it's the chorusy kind of, it's very, with the sweet picky and stuff, and it's almost like neoclassical. The acoustic, the way they play the acoustic has definitely got that sort of classical kind of edge to it, hasn't it?
It's the squeak, the kind of the fret squeaks.
Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere that said something like, you don't want to, you want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I do.
It's just something really nice about being able to hear the kind of the fingers moving around on the fretboard.
It's real. It makes it human and real and imperfect.
It's like when you hear, really off topic now, but
that's not like us.
It's not, is it? Moby.
Yeah.
Because it's the Moby and Testament, really similar. Moby did a reimagining of his album
Play.
Yeah.
And
and
Play Again.
there is.
I can't remember what it was called, but I remember it coming out.
There is a track on there. He reimagines Heroes by David Bowie.
Yeah.
And the bit I really love about it is the vocals are really tightly mic'd, and you can hear the breathing, you can hear the breaths.
Yeah.
And again, it's stuff that normally you would be like, oh no, we don't want, we don't want the breaths in there.
Yeah.
But it makes it's really weird. It feels really intimate.
Yeah, it's intimate and vulnerable, and yeah.
Yeah, it just works.
I like that stuff. I definitely like that stuff.
Anyway, that was our view of the New Order by Testament. I think it's brilliant. I think it's underappreciated. I think Testament as a band are underappreciated, and I think they're excellent. And I don't know what we'll do next week.
I don't know.
You'll like vomit something out, or you'll be like, no, I've done it. I think we'll do this. But it's been a pleasure having you with us. And find us on social media because we're embracing that, and it's great.
And the blog.
Yeah, we've got a blog, monstershop.uk. Our podcast. If you're listening to this, obviously you're listening to the. So you don't need to know how to find this.
But do the like, subscribe, share.
Oh yeah,
the word of mouth, review.
Yeah, please do that. Leave us.
Don't do a bad review. Don't do that. Don't do a 1-star. I'm not interested. Do you want to leave a good review? You're welcome to leave a good review. If you don't like it, just listen to something else. There's loads of good stuff.
There is actually.
Yeah.
I'm at that point where just anyone talking to us is great. So. Just leave us. Subscribing is super helpful. It tells the algorithm that we don't suck, and that's great. And share us with your friends. That's awesome too. Find us on Twitter. We've embraced X, and I'm enjoying it. It's great. I've made friends with lots and lots of other bands and other podcasts, and we're having a bit of a good time over there. And we post daily stuff, so albums that were released on this day in history, and loads of cool things like that. The blog is essentially the content of this podcast, but in like a readable format. So all of the stuff we're talking about how it was recorded, and the consoles and the mics, and how much the album sold, and like kind of the commercials and all of that stuff. It will be in the blog. That's monstershop.uk. And we'll see you next week.
See you later.